welcome to this week's edition of the Goat Rodeo Podcast. I'm your host, Garrett Smith. I'm joined by regular co-host Simon Kuhn. Dave Cottle, regular co-host, is out moving his family transcontinent, maybe. I don't know. He's moving somewhere. Hopefully he resurfaces at some point. We could really use him back at the company. And we're joined this week by irregular co-host Les Craig from Next Frontier Capital. He's a general partner over there. He's just our kind of guy. He's military by background. He's played in the IC. He's operated, he's founded, and now he invests. And he builds communities. We like people like him. And it just so happens he lives not too far from me and was a ready tag-in for this week's recording. So anyway, welcome, Les. How are you?
I'm doing great, guys. I'm so excited to be here. Maybe let my hair down a little bit today. One thing I'd love to do, if you're open to it, is I'm going to be in costume the entire episode. Are you guys cool with that?
I thought you already were in. Sorry. Well, yes, please go ahead. Yeah, by all means.
So I brought a bunch of different headgear that I've represent different parts and times of my military career. I'm going to start with the last thing I ever wore in a war zone, which is this, and strap this on as my first, and I'll change the headgear kind of as we go.
Wow.
Just based on the theme of the conversation. So
I love the idea of not acknowledging it as we do it, though. Just swap them out. No one says a word.
So a couple of questions last. Well, first a comment. This is a podcast. This is a forum. This is a community where you can be you. You do whatever you want to do. We accept and love you no matter what. A couple of questions. Is that an IR flag on your right side?
Up top?
No. That's IR. Okay,
that good. Is IR. Sure.
Yeah. I've that's the only way to go. And then is that an OG Hellstar on top? What's that? What is that thing?
This actually does not belong there, but that I just threw that on there for the archive. But this is this is an IR. Batteries probably don't work anymore. But it was.
I'm just now realizing that Les's background is projected.
Yeah, I just saw that too.
I just figured that out because of his helmet. I've been completely bamboozled up until this point. I'm like, it doesn't look like an office; it's his house.
Yeah.
Les, you'll notice this is my call sign.
It's a great call sign.
Yeah, it's pretty good. That's pretty good. Dare we ask live how you got that call sign? Because call signs there's a tradition behind call signs. They are issued to you usually in something like a kangaroo court, and they aren't always the most flattering or don't always have the most shall we say virtuous of background stories. Can you tell us anything?
It's actually a good story. I'll try to tell it quick. So Eric Stebner, who was my platoon sergeant, Ranger Regiment, one of my lifelong dear friends, incredible guy. Silver Star on Roberts Ridge as a private. It's an incredible story to read. But I show up as a new lieutenant in Ranger Regiment. Eric's my platoon sergeant, and endearingly, the first day I get introduced, I think it was my weapons squad leader, was like, "Hey, Sergeant Stebner, did you bring your kid brother to the formation today?" And he's like, "Yeah, hey, the kid, come on." So they started out calling me the kid. And they would refer to me in third person. They'd be like, "Sir, can you believe what the kid is making us do on this FTX?" I'm like, "You guys, I know that I'm the kid, okay?" And then one day, I think it was Marable, one of my just jackass squad leaders. He started calling me Squirt, and so it wasn't actually a call sign. But the last mission I ever went on with those guys, they replaced my leaderboards with my actual call sign with these leaderboards, and so I wore them on one op in Baghdad, and I didn't even know they were on there until the end of the mission. Everybody's dying laughing. They switched them out. It was night. I didn't know. So Squirt.
That's awesome.
It's on my going away plaque and everything. So yeah.
I love
those guys. Love those boys. One Charlie.
One of the things I love the most about my military experience, and I'm sure Simon can riff on this as well, is that subtle, good-natured but subtle condescension from the quality enlisted people toward the officers. You know what I mean?
Say, like squad leader up to lieutenant's a pretty risky move in and of itself. Like you're committed at that point. Platoon sergeant's different, right? He can say whatever he want.
Yeah.
Squad leader's he's hanging out a little bit there.
Somebody else has to have tested those waters before the squad leader throws
it's either the funniest joke ever told, or it's like, hey, let's pull him aside real quick and talk about how it's supposed to go.
Last question about your getup, Les. Did you wear those orange glasses in combat? Go ahead.
The VA actually issued me these, so no
doubt.
It's after I got out.
Bro, I'm not questioning at all the necessity of those orange lenses. I'm just wondering if they are combat ready. Are they ballistic grade? That's
they are ballistic grade. I think. What do you guys think? I could rock this.
No, I think they're great.
Target?
I want some.
Yeah. You could probably rock them at XCal. You've got that XCal target behind you, or not behind you because it's virtual. But anyway, cool. Les, we're gonna plumb the depths of your expertise in venture here by starting off the conversation with a few kind of headliners from the past week of venture funding announcements in the defense tech space. We got a few. Again, this is not exhaustive, so if you want to send me notes out there in Listenerville about deals that I missed or whatever, please go ahead. But relatively early stage, let's call it Series B and younger. There are a few of note. I've seen EdgeRunner bouncing around, so this is I think maybe one of many early efforts to deliver AI at scale to national security enterprise. $12 million Series A. Les, I don't know if you've seen that deal or not. Crossbow led by, am I right, Lockheed Ventures? Lockheed Ventures led the round into Crossbow. $105 million Series B. I mean, so
on the smaller size of Series B's. Yeah.
Right. Nowadays. Yeah. Totally. Am I right that Chaos just raised something like $400 million on a $2 billion post or a pre or something? So that's my friend, mentor, although I haven't spoken with him in a bit, but John Tennett's over there, and he's part of that crew that's building huge early stage kind of disruptive platformy type neoprimes in the making. He was involved with stuff like Epirus and early Anduril and a bunch of other things. So anyway, the message I'm taking here, Les, is that I was gonna originally title this segment "Hot or Not." Venture in defense, is it hot or not? Not only is it hot, it seems to be heating up still. Do you have that same sentiment?
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's time for the first headgear change already here, but I'm gonna put on my butter bar cover.
Oh, nice.
I think. It's kind of bonkers to me right now to think. So it's one thing to say like, okay, Lockheed is writing a $105 million check. I mean, like, but for like Madrona leading in on this $12 million round, like,
right.
What are they seeing as a venture fund that has posted venture class returns? And their ability to get into a deal this early at that kind of price. I mean, you can only imagine what the price of that round was. It's like, I don't understand how they underwrite the returns model, especially when you look at comps in the defense tech in the space. Like, where could EdgeRunner end up in the 300 million enterprise value? Like, I don't see how they underwrite an investment like that.
So Garrett, you and I have talked about this a lot, and we have always framed it from a perspective of if the DoD and if the government is going to maintain interest in venture, and specifically venture and defense, there's going to need to be significant contract awards in order to incentivize this like continued investment. Sure. I am increasingly thinking that's not the case. And as a non-venture guy, my opinion here is worth a grain of salt. But I got to assume that at some level, the $1 trillion and ever-growing defense budget will always be an attractive target. There's always going to be someone out there thinking, I can slice off a piece of that. Let me go build the case and find the people who believe in the vision.
So I'm going to speak for your class of human, Les, here. But your tribe is on the hunt for monopolistic, multi-billion-dollar 1000x outcomes. Right? I mean, that's power law drives what you guys do in whichever industry you're attempting to play in. So I think your question's a good one. And my sense is that everybody is hunting for the next Anduril, or the next Palantir, right? Like the next multi-billion-dollar thing that over quite a long period in defense will end up dominating a chunk of that market, right? And so I think Simon's probably partly correct that the massive, disruptive, multi-billion-dollar platforms might not actually yield profits for quite a long time because it takes so long to assert or to impose a new dominant, platform into this market. But I think the other side, the flip side of that coin is that there's going to be like 100 companies that are going to be, quote, successful, right, in defense in this kind of disruptive, but they're going to exit in the 100 million, 400 million, $500 million range, right?
Yeah.
And so investors, correct me if I'm wrong, that you're hunting for the 1,000x multi-billion-dollar platform outcome, but
Sure.
You're going to be quite happy if you have a handful of, successful but not, unicorn exits in the portfolio stack. Am I right?
Correct. But here's the problem. In traditional B2B SaaS, there's a lot larger N in terms of companies that can make it to the outcomes that will get you that 100x or whatnot. In defense specifically, how many Andurils, how many Palantirs, how many are there going to be?
5.
6?
I mean, I keep
5.
Well, nobody knows. Nobody knows. We're prognosticating, but I keep hearing 6 to 10, right?
Yeah,
I
sure.
think it'll be 10.
So okay, you can count on like 2 hands. How many? Maybe 1 hand. But the problem is, like, if you're building a fund on the thesis of we're gonna land a couple of those, like, good luck. And even to land one of them, I think, is such an anomaly. Like, in my perspective is, you play for that as an outcome, but your expected case, you have to underwrite to outcomes in probably the $100 to $300 million space. And how do you get in at some of these pre-money valuations and put that much capital to work and expect to get it? I mean, the outcomes in the 500 million to $1 billion, they're not going to happen.
Right.
They're not going to happen.
Right. Well, and at the time, just to play it all the way through, let's say that, the big success stories end up going public, right? Palantir took a long time to do that. Anduril inevitably will go public at some point, et cetera, et cetera. Not to mention other companies that are always rumored to be thinking about going public, like Shield AI. Refer to Forbes piece that is not especially complimentary to the Shield AI team, but those plays when they're raising a Series E or a Series F, and you see like $2.5 billion going into a late stage round, that when they get to IPO, they can't live up to the 27x forward revenue hype, meter that's been put on them. So like, I don't quite understand what those late stage investors are thinking, except that they're putting money to work and they expect it to be at work for the next 15 years.
Yeah. Yeah. The time horizons are also, to your point, like the time horizons are much different. And that's where, like, I think it's fascinating. Like the traditional venture model, probably, the 10-year fund life, the 2 and 20 kind of, fees and carry infrastructure. I don't know if that works, but it's funny because you see all these like hypey new defense tech only funds being raised with the same old model. If I were going to raise a defense tech fund tomorrow, I would probably try to reinvent the model that makes sense for the industry, not, just make the square peg fit in the round hole. And what I love about my firm is, I'll do maybe 1 to 2 new investments a year. I look at defense tech and cyber. So I call it more like national security tech. And so, for me, I can look at 1 or 2 deals a year, pick them, blend that into a portfolio of other companies more broadly in the SaaS industry, and we can create great venture outcomes with that strategy that's blended across other industries and more traditional SaaS companies. So,
I mean, you're lucky though. You've got a unicorn in the making in the portfolio. Full disclosure to those in Listenerville, Reveal is a Next Frontier, Les Craig portfolio company. So you're lucky. The power law is working in your favor in this case, and we're doing great. But last item here on kind of the weekly news roll up, whatever funding announcement docket. Our friends at Turbine One, Ian Kalin announced a $36 million Series B. What I really appreciate about what they have done over now many years of kind of early stage hustle is that they took, I'm going to call it a minimum of venture money. This is near and dear to the operator, fearful of dilution, my heart, right? But what they did was funded early stage operations by participating in paid exercises. So they would do, exercise participation, get paid to do that, fund the next stage of development, generate some customer stickiness, get some feedback, all that stuff, and grow the company that way. Instead of, and again, I'm not casting shade here, that it's just a different way to build a company. Instead of going out and raising, a $50 million seed round with only a whiteboard concept of what you want to build, and you just kind of try and get in on the momentum game. So anyway, congrats Ian and the Turbine One team on that announcement.
Can I switch headgear on that real quick?
Oh my God. Please do.
I want
switch headgear.
I want to call. I mean, I think it's great, and I think it's a great company. I think I love the approach that they've taken. But one thing I want to just call a little bit of BS on. By the way, this is Black Sheep 173rd Airborne Brigade, but I'm gonna call BS on it. Like AI at the edge. I don't fundamentally understand. I get the buzz about it, but like I can do AI on my own damn edge right now on my own machine. Like literally text-based AI. I can download, there's frameworks like Llama, LM Studio, like Hugging Face. I can download a framework. I can download a model that's compatible with the hardware I have on my machine, right? And I can follow the framework's instructions to get that thing up and running on my machine. I haven't done this, but like it's not, I know I have a bunch of friends that have done it. It's not rocket science. So why is there this big buzz about machine learning and AI at the edge? Like you can do it. Like I could show my mom how to do AI at the edge if she wanted.
Well, so here's what I will say to that. First, I don't have a general comment on general purpose pan industry AI at the edge. Should you start a new company if you can just go out and get Hugging Face and do the thing, right? No, I don't really have any pushback on that. What I'll say in the national security space, though, and Simon, you can back me up on this or not, depending on how you feel, but everything is pinned to requirements, and requirements are pinned to specific use cases and capabilities and capability gaps and answering future needs and O-plans and all that stuff. So, like a government lab, a defense lab can grab one of these language models, download it, play around with it, attempt to kind of lever it into a use case, and then build a con-op around it. No doubt some of that's happening, in RDT&E land out there in the United States Defense Department and elsewhere. But that's why company formation is still, I think, viable for this piece of the AI industry in the national security space. It's because the government has very specific implementation requirements for the thing. This doesn't even touch like the cyber vulnerability assessments and the supply chain stuff and everything else.
This is exactly my point. Like, to me, the much more valuable play is demonstrate the value at the tactical edge where you're solving a real problem, not just like a wrapper kind of solution. Demonstrate the value at the edge, and how is it secure, and how is it considering not only the physical environment but the EW environment? Because like to me, that's the future of the edge. It's EW, it's cyber, and it's some sort of physical layer or control where it's all kind of meshed together.
Yeah, no, I mean, that makes sense to me. And again, that's like what you're describing is kind of like a full solution stack that's in a wrapper that's probably by default going to be built by Booz Allen Hamilton or somebody else, right? Some big systems integrator, right? And it'll take 20 years. It'll take 20 years to implement the full solution that you could do on your own mobile device tomorrow, right? Like,
I've got quick three thoughts. The first is like the most macro level thought around SaaS in general, right? Like, and this is a thing I've been thinking about as far as the utility of very large SaaS opportunities in a world where you can go just download AI yourself, and you can sort of custom build, with natural language coding that you can now do through AI software. You can kind of build your own tools relatively quickly, depending on, how savvy your organization is. And I think that also applies to the military, because like to the point, if the bureaucracy is too Byzantine, the soldier will just figure out how to do it on their own. And I have always believed that in every scenario, that like the Joe is 1,000,000 times more resourceful than the bureaucracy wants to believe, and he will just figure out a way to do it if it's actually a problem. And this is where I think about like AI at the edge is, all right, what's your actual use case? Like, is this a thing Joes are clamoring for? And it's very case by case, and I'm not familiar with Turbine One, but like that's always my first thing is, would a Joe build this for himself? Like if you gave him the resources and tools, which are heavily democratized right now. Because to your point, Garrett, the actual game here is selling to the government.
That's right.
Building something to the requirement is its own thing, and that's great. And even finding the use case is not at all going to guarantee you success, because success lives and dies in navigating the maze of selling to U.S. Gov and DoD. So there's I see like three big macro questions there that makes it very hard for me to necessarily see the play. And I think particularly with edge AI, which could mean a million things, I want to see the no bullshit, this is what it does for the infantrymen or whatever the job field is that they're excelling towards, right? I need to feel a tangible, like I need that light bulb moment. Otherwise, how can I get excited? There's a million light bulb moments out there right now. What makes this one like fire me up?
Yeah, I mean, and then when you layer on top of it like the 25 training day onboarding training course for initial AI operator certification and like all the other stuff that that gross middle layer of prime contractors imposes on the government, and the program managers willingly say yes to because it means a bigger top line to their budget for their program of choice. Simon, the plight of the Joe is near and dear to your heart. I know that you got a bit activated yesterday as we discussed. Another big news item. The big news item is that there's an additional giant chunk of budget resourcing being redirected at border security, border operations, border facility, border construction, and that apparently a big chunk of that is coming from an Army facilities, a U.S. Army facilities budget line, which I think you were making the point that negatively impacts the Joe, which again, as a Mustang officer, I've been there. I've been a junior enlisted Marine. I get it, but I think you had a special level of activation about this. What are you feeling this morning after sleeping on it?
Look, facilities accounts and the like less sexy side of running a 1 million person organization where you take people away from their hometowns and stick them into a foreign place and with a new community are like the eternal whipping boy of internal budget maneuvers. And what we're talking about right here is not the increase to the DHS budget that's in the budget request. It's not the $5 billion that's in budget reconciliation. It's another billion plus that's going to get moved around internally to fund border operations, which for those of us that are selling, capabilities and are thinking about challenges in the southern border, it's probably a boon, right? Like this is money that's going to flow to NORTHCOM, it's going to flow to the Joint Task Force doing the work down there. It's good stuff for our industry. For me, from like a thinking about, the last time we went after the wall, which was $1 billion that came out of the Army facilities account, and the time we had budget crunch before that during sequester. I mean, for better or worse, I spent 7.5 years in the Senate traveling to different bases and meeting with garrison commanders and folks who run FSRM. And those are the budgets that get raked every time. And if you go to Pendleton and look at the barracks, and the best barracks that they'll show you feel like a prison, because that's what the Marines are accustomed to, and that's what we do. But it's like, man, brutal. The kids they love it because they don't know any better, but these are rough. Yeah, and they're just getting worse.
The rocks are painted white and the grass is immaculate. I mean, those are great facilities. Yeah, Les, tell us about the plight of the Joe and the barracks in Vicenza, Italy at the 173rd. Is that nice?
It doesn't matter what the barracks are like, because how often is Joe? I mean, Joe wants to end up not spending the night in the barracks.
GWOT was very different,
but
right?
How often are you even in the barracks? Like, especially when you're in Italy. Like, I mean, some of the Joes are playing video games and stuff in the barracks, but like, go downtown in Vicenza. Go to an Italian nightclub. Like,
go downtown in Jacksonville, North Carolina, and beautiful 29 Palms. Get out there, and enjoy the scenery.
Yeah.
But the plight of, honestly, actually, it's time for a hat change. So, old hat.
Oh my God!
Old hat.
You've turned into one of those guys.
I've got one of those somewhere around here.
So like, this is funny, right? This is like a Vietnam era hat.
Yeah, those are all.
This is an analogy, but it's like, new war. Like, the Army is always gonna be feeling this pinch, I think. The military in general, but I think like that's one of the things that makes it special. I mean, I remember when I was in Ranger School, we were training Vietnam era tactics, and then I deployed to Afghanistan, and thank God Ranger School was so bad, because like it was Vietnam era tactics.
Sure.
And Afghanistan seemed great comparatively. So like I don't fundamentally think this is something to like, this is like milk worth crying over. Like, to me, the border is an important mission. And if we need the resources to send people there, send soldiers there, send combat systems, develop and improve some of our combat systems along the border, drones, surveillance, like there's EWs platforms. Like, to me, I don't see this as such a bad thing. Like,
so a good segue, honestly, into whether or not these coming budgets and these pots of money. Also, I disagree completely, but
wait, hold on, don't gloss over that.
Yeah, these coming pots of money are not. Garrett, we talked about this, about whether or not these new influxes of cash, or even if this general budget request, it's being called $1 trillion by the admin, it's being called less by Congress. Are we actually buying down new innovative capabilities with new innovative entrants, or are we, to Bing West's recent point, just doing more of the same?
That's a bigger question.
Yeah,
right.
And what you're referencing, Simon, is a piece written by Bing West called A Very Conventional Defense Budget. Really compelling piece. And basically he's saying is that window trappings, like all this innovation talk, is just theater. It's just surface level stuff. But fundamentally, nothing's changing. And you know what? I think I'll back you up on the sentiment and say that, what is it? Something like between 1% and 3% of total DoD spending goes toward non-traditional contractors, NTCs. And NTCs, which includes even very large non-traditionals like Anduril and even things as small as, Edge Runner that we cited in the previous story that just took a $12 million plug of initial investment. And everything in between, those are all non-traditional contractors. So between 1% and 3%, and I might have that number wrong, of U.S. DoD spending goes toward non-traditionals. You're saying that the 97+% of the rest of the budget is basically unchanged.
Yeah, what are we buying down? Like, we're gonna go rip $1 billion out of like a sorely hurting quality of life budget area, but we're gonna keep all of the traditional primes that are just burning cash and not delivering capability. You're going to rob Peter to pay Paul. Meanwhile, whatever is going on over here is like, nah, don't look under the sheet. Like that, that's
first off, we got to pay for all those planes that the junior enlisted folks keep dropping off aircraft carriers. We got to pay for those planes.
I was under the impression that officers are responsible for that kind of thing. That's what
I'm just
told.
kidding. Totally. Undoubtedly, an officer is behind that.
The ass chewing that rolled downhill there was probably spectacular the first time, but the second time, what do you even do?
I mean, the 06, whatever, the captain on that ship, man, that guy.
I am never going to financially recover from this. What a legend.
He's got to write a book immediately, pointing fingers and getting, he's got to do that immediately.
When lightning strikes twice. Yeah. That's what it'll be called.
But Simon, your point here is that the innovation economy, while on its surface looks promising, and certainly, citing our previous stories, the venture community, the risk capital, private capital allocating community seems to think so too, right? That there's something to be done here, something very valuable to do, to generate, to capture. But you're saying that Bing West is probably right, that nothing's changing.
So I think there's a couple of things to think about, right? One of which I think is this concept of first through the breach. And I think we're hitting that point with innovation where your Andurils and your Palantirs and even your Shield AI, right? Like even that article of them taking it in the teeth is a good example of being first through the breach, right? They're trying to do new stuff with new things and new environments and new models.
I like that.
And shit's going to go wrong. It's terrible. But how many Marines died bringing the Osprey to fruition? Because I know me and the Marines that stood underneath it while it was hovering talked about it a lot. Right, we were not particularly excited about that job as 19-year-olds, but we did it anyway. And so I think the venture community and even just the defense prime community is also thinking about all of these guys that are going through the ass pain of figuring this out are paving the way for whoever those eventual 5 to 10 folks are going to be that are really going to dial in and get that win. So even though I agree there needs to be serious contracts, and I do think they're coming in a couple different forms across the services, I think right now everyone is realizing this is the time to get after it, to try to become one of those 5 to 10, right? Like the first of the breaches kind of already happened, and this is your chance to make something good of it. But I don't think we're going to make something good of it by shifting. Like, we're not going to solve innovation with $1 billion from the House budget. And you're certainly not going to solve the border with $1 billion from the House budget. So like, let maybe not defund the barracks in the pursuit of this thing. Maybe we could find another underperforming legacy platform and unlock tens of billions of dollars instead of one.
Well, here's another maybe a higher level question is like, if the border is a national security issue, which I believe it
Sure.
certainly is, shouldn't it have its own dedicated funding rather than cannibalizing the Pentagon's already super stretched budget and taking away from like the barracks, right? Like what?
And they are doing that, right? You're looking at $5 billion in reconciliation. You're looking at a pretty significant increase in DHS, and there's a political component to it. It's traditionally difficult to raise the DHS and DoD budgets without also raising like the other domestic budgets. And that's always been the fight. And we'll see if that works this year, because like the Trump admin budget request is an increase to defense and not domestic. It's a cut to domestic. And that kind of flies in the face of traditional congressional logic, which I also don't think will hold up with the current size of the majorities and the way these things are shaped. But I agree. Like, if we just had serious conversations where we were like, this is a serious threat, and we need to fund it as such, and not like shell game these things in a circle and we always know what happens, who loses in a shell game, no matter where it is. It's the guy at the bottom, right? It's that random 19-year-old like, wait, what? Yeah, I want to go to the border and do the work. Why does my house have to suck?
Yeah.
I don't know why how that became a part of the trade.
Well, so I think we're all in agreement that this is a worthy endeavor. We're also identifying that in this case, maybe just this year and maybe in future years, the executive branch basically has to rob Peter to pay Paul to reallocate resourcing to a priority national security capability gap or a priority area of activity. But at the end of the day, isn't this Congress? Congress authorizes and appropriates, and Bing West in his piece actually he draws the conclusion that this is on Congress. Congress needs to do the meaningful allocation, appropriating, kind of programming of.
Ooh, that's not
right?
the point that he makes. No.
The point he's saying is that any real shift in procurement, he says any real kind of, call it 20% shift in procurement activities has to be driven by the Secretary and Deputy Secretary of Defense, but only right now because we're off cycle. Long term, it's a Congress problem. No.
Yeah.
So the current argument is that the executive branch no longer believes it belongs to the Congress, right? This is our argument about the Impoundment Act, and this is like a big budgetary question. I think Bing West's point here is that Congress is incapable of prioritizing these things seriously, and it's going to fall on SecDef.
I agree with that, but that doesn't mean that it isn't their job. It just means that they suck at their job.
I think we're moving past the point of saying, hey, this is your job, and we're moving into the point of like, executive branch is just going to do it. They're going to go impound the money that they don't want to spend, and they're going to go spend on the things they do want to spend on. And we're going to watch that play out in real time. I think it's going to end up at the Supreme Court. I honestly believe that like federal government spending is going to end up a Supreme Court issue in the next year.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I switched to the herd hat, the 173rd Brigade, because I think there's a herd thing here. Congress is a herd, and the cowboy's about to go just take it into his own hands here.
Yeah,
I agree with Simon.
I do too. I agree with Simon, but I'll also say I don't blame the executive branch. They have identified a mission, they've made commitments, and they're trying to do a thing, right? And like they're trying to get it done the way that they can while maintaining political viability. And I'm not saying that it's right. I'm not saying it's legal. I'm not saying that it's anything. I'm just saying that they are motivated and they are doing a thing. And they're doing it because Congress has shown an inability to do it.
So I think it's important, and especially for folks in our industry, as they think about how this affects our lives and like the way we do business, is that the way the Congress and the way the executive branch funds the DoD is not static, right? There was no Impoundment Control Act until the 60s, 70s, 74, I believe. Like we funded the government differently. We did appropriations differently in different decades. I think we're hitting a real inflection point where the government is kind of going to have to restructure itself a little bit because the majorities are consistently too thin, to use the traditional like horse trading methods we've used to pass budgets in the past. And it's like breaking down. I could make there's political questions associated with the way the executive branch is operating, because I do think, particularly in our space, there's very serious people working on very serious issues and using this in a way that I think is appropriate. There's other political stuff happening in other parts of the government that I don't agree with. It's not really the place to opine on it. But the real question is, what does it look like on the back end? Like after the Supreme Court goes through and says, yeah, the executive branch can withhold. Does that mean that, companies go to Congress all the time to get funds appropriated to a specific program? If the Impoundment Control Act goes away, the executive branch can go, no, I don't like that. Kick rocks. I'm not spending that money. That's going to change the way you think about interacting with Congress, the way you think about interacting, particularly on the political side of government funding to support your business.
So I got a question for you guys in terms of the 2025 defense budget. Do you believe that it is bold enough for the current threats that are out there, or is it just more of the same?
Well, so let's make a distinction here. The 25 budget went away, and continuing resolution came into effect for the rest.
Budget.
But there's a giant reconciliation package that is adding to current and future kind of ability to resource things. Are we talking about the 26 budget, like the stuff that's being worked right now, or something else?
Sure. Yeah. Why don't we go there? Yeah.
Okay. Sure. Simon, do you want to lay down maybe what is going on, and then offer an opinion if you've got one?
Sure. No to both, for the record. But FY25 is Biden's numbers, right? It's FY24 numbers dragged forward with a new 150 dumped on top. But that 150 is to Bing West Point overwhelmingly on conventional old stuff, and has a few billion here and there for new problems. So no, that's not bold at all. It's completely conventional, and it's peanuts, for being honest. 60,000 more drones. Russia's cranking out 1 million a year, 1.5 million a year. What are you doing? FY26 is a cut. Full stop. I don't care what anyone says about it. It's a cut to the top line, and it has the assumption of another reconciliation bill to add some money on top. But if your baseline is lower than inflation, and you don't get that reconciliation, you're certainly not going to get a reconciliation every single year. So you're going to be operating from this lower baseline and trying to rebuild from that cut. It's a cut.
So you could have a cut that is still sufficient to the task if you're reprioritizing and reallocating. But Simon, you're arguing that is not happening.
Yeah,
this is going to be same old but
things
less.
Are happening. It's less money. It's not reprioritized. It has some dangerous assumptions about supplements.
So you see the next fiscal year's budget through the lens of Bing West, but with the added Simon sentiment of it's also a reduction in top line.
My sentiment aligns with Tom Cole, Mitch McConnell, and Susan Collins. All the appropriators have said, hey, this is a cut because it has assumptions of supplements that aren't promised.
But not only is it a cut, you're saying it's a cut and they're not prioritizing or spending on the right things.
Totally. You have to assume that reprioritizing is the hard part.
Yeah.
Adding more money is honestly the easy part. I think everyone has used a really good case for the threats that are coming and the changing face of war. That's easy. We need more money, but it's very hard to reprioritize and dislodge the primes.
So to cite a recently elected member of the U.S. Senate and a friend of the company and a Montana Senator, Tim Sheehy, I saw a social media post yesterday that it was a very simple kind of, I think it was actually a repost on LinkedIn with like a comment to the top, and it was, the Navy has 250 ships and 300 admirals.
Yeah.
Did you? I don't know if you saw that. So
what a burn.
So I'm not, maybe it's a big burn, maybe it's not. It's certainly an opinion. But what he's pointing at is exactly what we're pointing at. It's that, what are we doing? Like, it seems like we're doing the same old thing. We're very top heavy. We don't seem nimble. We don't seem like we're resourcing programs and resourcing capability to meet the present and future set of, existential, even national security priority missions. What are we doing here? So like, I'm inclined to kind of agree with the vibe, the sentiment that Senator Sheehy's putting out there, but wonder if you guys think that applies or not to this current company. Yeah.
Do less with more. Do more with less.
Yeah.
Do less with more. Do more with less, right? And we always apply that to the Joes, but we never look at the General Officer Corps and say
Freudian slip, your former Govey thing, a Freudian slip there, Simon. Yeah.
There's another article about those cuts. I think it was in Politico, and it has all these anonymous senior DoD officials saying, well, we're not sure if this is a well thought out cut to the General Officer Corps. I'm like, grow up. The Army's job is to figure out how to get the mission done. I promise you can figure out how to get the mission done with 20% less general officers.
100%.
There's no question. I've never felt more secure in a sledgehammer cut than in that one. And I applaud Hagseth and whoever else is writing it. You don't need that many stars. You just don't.
I agree. Yeah, totally agree. I think you were kind of right in that. I'm not going to say Freudian slip again, but I think you were kind of right. Like the do less with more is actually the thing that the American population is identifying in our government right now. And very specifically, the innovators in the economy are looking at the national security, capability set and the spend, and we're identifying and we're diagnosing that is what's going on. There's less being done with more resourcing, and it seems like the resourcing continues. So I'm of the opinion that a reduced top line to the budget isn't a bad thing, provided that we spend on the right things.
Yeah, I mean, if we can't unstick shipbuilding, it's all for naught, right? Like the biggest chunk of reconciliation, $150 billion, 35 of it is just going to shipbuilding. And I'm not a shipbuilding expert. I know a lot of smart people on it. I'm sure they would disagree with me on some of this. But I haven't seen anything in any of my adult life that made me think, we just need to pour more money there, and they're going to start doing it, right? Like,
I mean, this is why companies like Anduril and others are going and forging partnerships with South Korean shipyards, right? I mean, this is
where is the SpaceX of shipbuilding? Like,
totally, it's
I'm
coming,
begging for it.
But that isn't that exactly what Saronic is. So Les, I don't know if you've looked at that deal, but Saronic is all about this kind of shipbuilding infrastructure of the future. It's autonomous, it's robotic, it's et cetera. Yep. I mean, I agree with you, Simon. We needed a SpaceX of shipbuilding, and we need it ASAP, especially because the Chinese have demonstrated such an overmatch capability in terms of ability to produce seagoing military vessels, right? I mean, it's just insane.
It's like a classic example in any industry. Like when you get bloated, when you get comfortable, you get slow, you get lazy, and like innovation, it's like action at the speed of innovation is like what we need more of. The challenge with it is like, I remember I go back to when I was at CIA and I went for a run with Petraeus when he was a director, and I was so frustrated with some of the training and stuff that was going on. I'm like, this is Cold War era stuff. And he's like, yeah, Les, that's why we're changing it. But it's going to take a generation of CIA officers to make these changes. And like, I feel like the same thing, even more so with DOD. Like, it's going to take a generation. This isn't something that we need to make hard decisions now and create a foundry that's going to forge the future opportunities where things can change. But it's like, budget cuts, things like those are the right ingredients, but it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to could take a decade to actually see the fruits of some of this change, I think.
And we've got to do it without being in a state of open war and conflict, right? So like oftentimes the big innovations in the national security establishment come about because of existential threat or hot war, right? So the Cold War was huge for innovation because there was always this kind of existential threat on the horizon of a Soviet nuclear missile attack or whatever, right? So that existed. And then, World War II basically overhauled the complete world order, not just the United States, national security establishment. But I mean, it took that kind of big and then think global war on terror, right? Like all the innovation that happened in the 2000s and 2010s.
Counter-IED stuff, yep.
Right. So we are now not in a conflict. We're observing conflicts and we're trying to learn from them, but the kind of existential impulse and will are not yet fully engaged to make this happen. Hence why this is becoming such like a hot kind of almost culture war political fight, because not everybody agrees that there's an actual threat.
Making me feel old.
It's amazing how many hats you have.
It's a lot of hats.
A lot of hats.
Tell us about your hat collection. Tell us more about that as we wind down.
I realized when I went, like last night, I was like, I could do something fun on the episode. I'm like, I have all these random old military hats. And like, I didn't even go into like the beret collection but like
some of them military,
like random,
some of the military.
I still got two more, but yeah, I think I'm going to run out of airtime.
My only beret is raspberry. It's a whole different thing.
I got one of every color.
Good for you.
I guess I don't have a green. I don't have a green beret.
Yeah.
But actually,
Fuchsia?
my buddy's dad, who's a green beret, and now is a fur trader in Russia, gave me this. So I thought I had
It's just as good.
All right, so I'm just going to say, if you are just listening to this podcast, you are missing out. You need to get on YouTube and scrub through the video if you already did the audio and just see this hat collection.
Yeah. Can we timestamp all the hat changes? That'd be great.
That's amazing.
Just to help the folks at
That's
home.
incredible. Well, Les, thank you for coming with all of your self, with your whole self today. We're grateful that you would tag in.
Anything to get the likes and subscribes for you guys.
That's right. That's right.
All,
what do they say? Mash that subscribe button. Only because of Les. If only because of Les and his hats.
Well, you know why? It's because Rangers lead the way. So
So I've been told.
They sure do. Airborne. So I'm continually impressed. Les, I mean, if you had to just guess round numbers, how many hats do you have? 100?
Like, actually, not military hats or regular?
No, just hats. No, everything. Every piece of headgear that you've got. What is it? Is it 500?
I've got over 100. I know that for sure.
Yes.
I gave a bunch of away when I left my company in Baltimore. I had a hat that was like symbolic of every employee that I had, and I gave them all one of my hats.
Oh my gosh.
That was like 30 out the door, but it didn't dent the collection.
That's amazing.
I used to collect hats from breweries. I have hats from all the ski slopes. I kind of have a hat problem, guys. Thanks for bringing it up on a live or on a public forum.
I didn't want to say this explicitly, but Les, this is an intervention. We're this is a hat addiction intervention. You're gonna have to start going to. Now that one I fully support.
Yeah, that's a hitter.
I knew I could get you with that one.
We got to get you one of the tiger stripe hats, and also me. I also need one of the tiger stripe hats. Let's throw this out there again.
Ian, our producer, has been ideating about what some Goat Rodeo swag could look like, and I think hats should be on the docket. Maybe we'll stand up a Goat Rodeo merch store or something, and
I'll sign the first 50 if you
and we'll route the proceeds from merch sales to Hat Wearers Anonymous, and an anti-hat addiction nonprofit.
Yeah,
all right, This has been fun. Thanks, guys, for joining me. For all you guys listening, watching, subscribe, follow us, leave a rating, leave a review, send us notes. That helps other people find the podcast and the video feeds. And we're excited to join you again next week. Adios.